This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. I am your host, John Allen, and I have a long-lost friend. Well, she's not quite lost, but she's an old-time friend and classmate of mine, Miss Erica Antoniotti. Hi.
Hi, John. Nice to talk to you.
This is very nice. I think in the, 30 years or so since graduation, we've spoken on the phone three times. I know we talked about me coming for one of our reunions, and we've chatted a lot on Facebook, but this is so nice to have you here. I can see you on FaceTime, and we're having a real conversation.
Yeah, this is great. You're so far away, and you've been so far away for so long. So.
Yeah, and of course, I was playing the tease because I came home back in, when was that, 2015, and I was actually at your place of business, and I didn't tell you about it. You saw the picture on Facebook afterwards.
I was miles away when I saw the picture, and I didn't have time there to catch up with you. I was bummed, but we'll get you back here one of these days.
One of these days, I will get back. Absolutely. There's so many things I would love to talk with you about, but let's start off by your function in the election process. This coming election. As you know, there's a lot of controversy out there. There's a lot of shenanigans going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. Can we start by you telling us what made you want to get involved in the election process this year?
Well, it's funny because it goes back a few years. It was actually in 2016, and there were a lot of shenanigans predicted at that time for the presidential election. So I was a few years out of being a practicing attorney, but as a citizen, I've always been pretty involved with politics. And in my job, I worked for some people who are really pretty involved, more so than me, in politics. But I felt the need to become involved. And so I just worked that first year as a poll observer. So I went through a training, and I was somebody who was not an official precinct official, but I was there at the polls just to be sure that everything was running according to the rules, because there are trained officials that work those elections, but there were some issues and concerns that there may be some voter suppression going on that election, and there may be people who might be intimidated. In
2016's election, right?
2016, that was 2016. So I was just an observer. So I was somebody who was a volunteer. Okay. A volunteer trained by my Democratic Party, which I'll admit I'm a member of. So I just went there to observe, and everything ran smoothly. I didn't have to get involved, but it was really an interesting day. It's a long day, but it was interesting. And then then the inevitable happened, and the election was over, and the votes were counted, and the Electoral College spoke up.
You say that with a little bit of distaste, Electoral College.
the current president didn't win the popular vote, but the Electoral College came out differently. So I went to the Women's March. I'm going to go on record and acknowledge that I am no fan of the current president. But I felt even more the need to get involved somehow. And people encouraged me to run for office. There were a lot of that kind of pressure going on back then. I'm real busy with the businesses that I run, and never have really been interested in running for office. I think I would love to do the job, but I wouldn't want to be on the campaign trail to do what you have to do to get the job.
That can be brutal. That can be a true test of character.
And I just don't have the heart for that. I don't want to do that as a job. No. I'm more committed to my personal business, but I want to be still involved. And so long story longer, precinct election official. So since 2016, I have worked every election, the primaries and the special elections, and now coming up on another presidential election, I've worked as an actual precinct election official, which means I'm one of the people that sit at the desk and register, sign people in when they come to vote, check their IDs, make sure that I do everything in my power to give them the ballot that they can vote. We can talk about the difference in the types of ballots that people may get when they come to vote. But right now I do everything in my power to make sure that people can vote a regular ballot on election day as anticipated by them.
Now, the interesting thing with me is I've never, I think I told you this when we were on the phone a few days ago. The last place I lived before I moved to Norway was in Illinois, in the Chicago suburbs. And it really irks me that because I am an Ohioan, I am a Buckeye.
Yes, you are.
And it irks me to not be able to vote as a citizen of Ohio. I have to vote as a citizen from Illinois. As an election official, if I were to come in there and give, my old address on Reimer Road in Norton and say, this was my last address. I've been out of the country, but this is my last address. How would you, or would you be able to catch me in that little subterfuge there? Is that...
Yeah, you absolutely wouldn't get a regular ballot. If you insisted on voting, I would give you what's called a provisional ballot, which is a ballot that does not, it looks like a regular ballot, but it doesn't go through the same process of being fed into the ballot counting machine.
But how would you know to give me a provisional ballot, though?
Oh, here's why. Because you'll give me your driver's license. It's not going to be an Ohio driver's license.
Right.
And therefore, you're not going to be able to vote at all because you don't have one of the proper required pieces of identification that would show that you live in Ohio. And if I were to scan your license anyways, it would show me that you don't show up in the voter rolls as someone who is eligible to vote at that precinct.
Because, it's questions like this that a lot of people on the right bring up. Well, actually, they don't even question it. They say it as a statement that someone would be able to do that, thereby cheating to possibly cheat in favor of Vice President Biden.
Right.
So I ask you that question, hopefully so that my listeners will really listen to your answer and they'll know that there is a system in place to catch people who are trying to cheat.
There's definitely a system. And here in Ohio today, October 5th is the last date that you can register to vote. So you can still go to the Board of Elections right now if you're in Ohio and say, I want to register. And all you need to do is show your driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, they'll take a state ID. If you don't have a state ID, they will even just take the last 4 digits of your Social Security number just to verify you are who you are. And then you can register. And that means that you would be in the system when you come to the polling location on November 3rd. You're going to be in the system. No questions asked. I'm going to type in your information, either your driver's license. We scan those directly into the system. There's a little barcode on our driver's licenses in Ohio right now. So there's a lot of information contained in that little barcode. So I just scan that with my little poll book. It's an iPad. I scan that and up pops your information. It says that you are registered to vote in this precinct and that this is your address. If you hand me your license, I'm going to ask you to verify your address, and you're going to tell me your address. And if it doesn't match what's on my poll book, I'm going to need some further information from you. We can change your address. I just need to make sure that you're voting in the right precinct, even if you.
How about matching up a signature?
Another good question. Yeah. That became actually in the last election. There were some people who. We've all gotten used to signing our names on screens or when you check out. I don't even bother anymore. I just squiggle a line. Yeah. That's not sufficient when you come to vote, because when you registered, and for some of us that was 32 years ago, you vote and you used to sign your name like we learned to sign our names in cursive, and it was all signed perfect signatures. We have to make sure that your signature on election day substantially matches the one that's on record. Substantially matches. So right. The question, if I say that doesn't match and they say, well, I didn't even try, I can ask them to do it again. And if it comes to it, it's an approximation. If it's close enough that I feel fine about it, I'll just hand them their ballot then. Okay, so it's a judgment call. Yeah. The judgment call. And if as a Democrat, so there's equal number of Democrats and Republicans at the polling location. And so if there is some question and I'm going to give somebody what for about their signature not matching, we can call over the other party and 2 of us have to make that determination. So I can't put anybody away for my personal judgment. There has to be 2 of us that agree that that's not your signature. We don't believe you're who you say you are.
Why isn't this kind of information out there? Because so many people on the left and the right are so uneasy about this upcoming election, mostly because of these I call it false apprehension from the president, let's just say it like it is, about cheating. So why isn't, for example, why aren't Democrats, why isn't the left more vocal about these things you're telling me and my listeners right now? Why aren't they more vocal about how secure the voting process is?
Maybe because it doesn't fit in a soundbite and people's attention.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of information. We're going to do a 45-minute discussion about it. It's a lot of information. I have taken this year to, rather than voicing my opinion on how the election should go on my social media accounts, taken to just trying to educate people, in my little corner of the world about all of these things, the deadlines for registering, and when you can vote, by the absentee ballot, and when you can go in person. I'm just trying to get that information out because I do believe that there is a lot of, as you say, apprehension and distrust in this process now because of the people who are sowing that distrust for their own purposes.
I have to say this about you. I see your social media feed. We're friends on Facebook. And I, for one, really appreciate you putting that straightforward, good information out there about what needs to be done and what can be done, when it comes to voting. And other issues as well, but specifically the voting issue. You seem to be very passionate about putting the proper information out there. You seem to be very passionate about doing your part, playing the role that you can to ensure that things go well. Where did that sense of being a harbinger of proper information, where does that come from? Because thinking back, knowing you when we were younger, it seems like that thread has been in your life all along. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I guess, my dad was a public servant.
Yeah.
And then my mom was a journalist. And so.
Was she? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she worked for the Akron Beacon Journal for years.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I think, we've always tried to do right and stick by the facts. And I don't know. I mean, I really feel like I was so, depressed about the last election.
Yeah.
I think that I had to reevaluate how I went about influencing people this time around, because prior to the 2016 election, I don't think anybody expected Donald Trump to be the nominee.
No.
But then when it happened, I just couldn't believe it. And the things that I was sharing on Facebook and other accounts was not helpful to my cause of having him be.
It was entertaining. It was entertaining.
Well, I really couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that he was even one of the choices.
No, I think a lot of people were shocked. I think a lot of people were embarrassed. I think a good number of his supporters are embarrassed. I think they are, but they don't. I do. I truly believe that they support him because they've kind of locked themselves into that. And the embarrassment of admitting they were wrong is greater than the embarrassment of pretending to follow this man. Of course, there's some real disgusting people who really do follow this guy because they love what he's doing. But I can't believe that there are that many people in America who can stand behind someone who has such deplorable, I'll use the word deplorable, ideals about what America is supposed to be about.
You sound like me, John, like you have been doing all you can to try to figure it out. And that seems to be a logical explanation that we want to believe. We want to believe that there aren't that many people that could support him. But, you see these rallies now, and you see these boat parades and just highway parades, and people with their flags everywhere, banners like we've never seen before. Yeah. I was President Obama's biggest fan, but I would never consider buying a banner to show the world. It's almost as if it's like they're people are calling it a cult. I don't know. It's just that they found their tribe, and they feel comfortable that they've got a group that feels the same way that they do, and it makes it seem more socially acceptable to feel the way
Yeah, and I will say this, the man is a genius at manipulation. He knows what to say and what to do to get these people in a fever pitch and to activate them. I'll give him that. He's very good at that, but I don't see how that's benefiting our nation at the moment.
No,
to say it mildly.
And hopefully, and I don't know, we're all in our own little social media bubbles, and so I see the things that I want to see through my feeds. And I know that works that way, and it is not a good read on the whole country, but it seems like people might be starting to realize that this is not the best.
I think so. Let me ask you this, back to the voting issue. How likely do you think it is that there can be substantial cheating in this election?
I don't.
Yeah, to me, he's just spouting a lot of rhetoric, but I don't see any fact. I don't see any likelihood of this massive cheating that he's talking about. There's a system in place to stop that from happening or to catch it if it does happen. Am I right?
I agree. I agree. I cannot imagine how it would happen other than people, registering people, helping people to get registered who otherwise wouldn't get registered, and then doing the actual filling out of the absentee ballot on their behalf. That's the only way I can see that this would be, that there could be any cheating. And even then, the people who are giving away their vote in that way would still have to sign their ballot and, allow someone to take their vote.
Yeah.
But I don't, the only way I can see it, because every state has their own system, and every county within every state has their own board of elections. So it's all very localized, and at least in Ohio, and I can't speak for every other state or even every other county in the state, but our county, it seems like it's pretty well buttoned up. I don't know how cheating could occur.
You're still in Summit County, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's a pretty big county, and there have been fights here in Ohio about the number of drop boxes that they'll allow.
Yeah, what's the situation with that? How's it looking for the drop boxes?
Well, we've got a drop box in every county, but there are some counties that are huge. Cuyahoga County involves Cleveland and the suburbs around Cleveland, and there's one drop box, and so I think people right now, because the powers that be have also sowed distrust in the post office, don't feel that they can just fill out a ballot, put it in the mailbox even early, and be sure that it's going to get to its destination on time. So, that the conventional wisdom right now is to either vote early in person, which starts tomorrow through the election day, November 3rd, or if you've already applied for an absentee ballot and you receive it, fill it out and take it directly to the Board of Elections. You can walk it inside, make sure you hand it to a person, or take it to the drop box.
Yeah.
Or, there's even specific rules in Ohio about who can deliver a ballot for whom. So I could take my mother-in-law's and my husband's, and I can take, close relatives is very strictly defined.
Yeah.
Law here about who can deliver someone else's ballot even.
So the ballot has to be filled out by the individual themselves, signed, but a close family member can take it in and drop it off. And that's fair. I'm thinking about old people. I'm thinking about people who don't have their own transportation. And then when you put on top of that there's only one drop box for a whole county, that's, I don't know, that seems pretty unreasonable to me.
Well, the other part that seems a little unreasonable about the absentee ballot process is you have to very carefully read the instructions. I mean, read them twice, because every box has different marks. There's a box that even asks, what type of election is this? Because it's generic application. What ballot? This is with the application for an absentee ballot. You had to say specifically, this is for the election on November 3rd. You had to fill in the right date. You have to put your birth date in the right place. You have to sign in the right place. And then when you get your ballot back, there's a security envelope that you put your ballot inside, and then you put it inside the mailing envelope. And if you don't put it inside the security envelope, they don't have to count it. So, there was a case in Pennsylvania. They litigated this just recently in Pennsylvania, that even though the security envelope is for your own security as a voter, if you forgot to put it in that and you just put it directly in the mailing envelope, they won't count your ballot, which is
well, it's voter suppression, if you ask me. They're counting on people not following it's almost like they put so many steps, so many rules in place, hoping that someone will miss one of those rules so that their vote won't count. Because isn't it a fact on a nationwide basis? Isn't it a fact that it's mostly Democrats who vote early or vote by absentee? I do believe.
That's news to me. I don't know the statistics on that.
I'm not the best researcher, but I think on Wikipedia and YouTube videos at midnight, I think I heard. But anyway, I do believe that of course you should secure the vote. You should secure the ballot. It should be a certain amount of steps that have to be gone through in order to verify that it's true. But it seems like things are overdriven to the point to where it's difficult to vote. And I think there's something unethical in that. Voting shouldn't be difficult.
It really shouldn't. And I don't know, there's talk of having more than one election day or putting it on a Saturday so that people have to work, all day.
Well, how about making it a national holiday?
That would even be better. Yeah. And then we can. So right now, John, I don't remember if you remember voting in person back when you lived here, but the average age of the poll worker is probably in the 70s for the average. It's a long day. We get there at 5:30 in the morning for a 6:30 start, election start, and then voting goes till 7:30 p.m. And then we're there until everything's cleaned up and reconciled at the end of the day. So we're probably there from 5:30 in the morning until 9 p.m. that day, and that's a long day
That's a long day, yeah.
And so I give so much credit to these people who are so committed to doing this and have done it for years. And I enjoy the time there.
And that's a strictly volunteer position. That's not a paid position, is it?
They pay you, but it comes out to less than minimum wage when you put when you add all the. So it's just, I think it's just like a token.
I see.
Pay there, but yeah.
Well, hats off to all people who give their time like that to do their part for our democracy. It's kind of weird that I have to say something like that, but in these crazy days where voter suppression is coming from the very top, I think that people need to say these kind of things as often as we can. We have to keep focus on it.
Right. Yeah. And it's, you feel good about doing it. And it's really like it's not just sign people in and give them a ballot. I mean, there's always an issue. Say a woman got married and her name changed. There's a whole process that you have to go through, a form that she has to fill out. And if there's not somebody there that's committed to making sure that she gets to vote, and that that's no impediment to her voting.
Yeah.
Then that, I mean, it could so easily just say, oh, you know what, you've got a name change, I'm just going to give you a provisional ballot. The problem with that is those provisional ballots aren't counted until more than 10 days after the election. Yeah. And that's another thing. I think that it's going to be a big problem in this country if so many ballots are uncounted until more than 10 days after the election, because that, you heard the debate.
Do you think this is going to end up in the Supreme Court?
Oh gosh, my hope is that enough people vote early enough that the votes can be counted on election day, and then we'll have an accurate count, and that it's a landslide, and that there's no reason for that to happen. I mean, who knows? Anything could happen, I think.
That's my fear, that it will go to the Supreme Court, and then something crazy and unexpected happens, and then this man continues for another 4 years.
Yeah.
Oof.
Not a good idea.
So there's nothing that can make you spend less time with your businesses and get into public office. How close have you come to actually doing it? I bet you've come close up through the years.
There's a guy who's a judge now who was an attorney at the time I worked with him in the law office, and he became a county council person.
Yeah.
He was really trying to talk me into doing it at the time. I just didn't want anything to do with it.
No.
I really don't have any desire to be in public office.
Yeah.
But I do like working on the fringes. And I was trying, after the 2016 election, I was trying to recruit other young women who I thought had potential. And there's
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, there are organizations dedicated to that purpose, is to train young women to run for office and people of color, just to get more diversity into the government, which would make a huge difference, I think.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we need. We need more people of color and more women. But like we were saying earlier, that whole campaign process is just brutal. It's gotten so ugly, and if they can't dig up some dirt, then they'll just make up some dirt. It's just,
Or sellable, I believe, pretty much anything, especially, the more salacious and ugly it is, and that stuff just spreads like wildfire just because it's human nature, I guess.
What kind of law did you practice? What kind of lawyer were you?
I was disability attorney, so I helped people to get Social Security disability benefits and workers' comp benefits when they were injured on the job.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Claim side of things.
I should bring you over here to Norway. You can be a Norwegian attorney and represent me for all this shoulder crap I've been going through the last 4 years.
Yeah, no kidding. You have been the ringer.
Yeah, I tell you. In fact, things might, you have that, you have the butterfly effect. If a butterfly lands on a flower, it can change the course of time. Now, if we go back to 2015 when I was there, but I didn't tell you, maybe if you and I would have met in 2015, I wouldn't have injured my shoulder, because it was during that trip that I injured my shoulder at a gym there in Kent. So,
really?
Yeah.
So you were in the competition where you injured it. It was actually...
Well, I did the competition, but I did it injured because it was during training. I was benching, and some knucklehead banged into the bar. I had like 400 and some pounds on it, and it just twisted the living daylights out of my whole arm and yanked my shoulder out. So that's when it all started.
I had no idea. But I just thought it was overdoing it.
No. No, because I always train smart. I make sure I get enough rest and everything. But it was that incident there, and I do believe it was the day after I was at your place of business. Yeah, it was the day after that it happened.
And I would have made you drink more wine than you were comfortable drinking. You probably missed your workout. You're right. Things could be totally different.
See, the butterfly effect. Effect.
Look at you now, doing and educating people about things like this. I mean, who knows?
Well, I'm loving this podcast. I like to share information. I like to talk to interesting people. Some of the guests I've had have just been, it blows my mind still that I've gotten to speak to some of the people that I have. I got to speak to a doctor from the CDC. He's the former head of child nutrition and education at the CDC. I got to talk to that guy. It's absolutely amazing.
I bet that was interesting.
Yeah. I got to speak with Ralph Molina, the drummer from Crazy Horse, Neil Young's band Crazy Horse. I got to speak with him on my podcast.
You've always been a big fan of Neil Young. That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting ride, and I like sharing information with people. And I thought of you for this episode because I don't like what I'm seeing with the lies being told about how unsecure the voting process is. And here you are, you're right in the middle of it, and you can speak the truth to that deception there.
You know what is really interesting, though, as they're going, they meaning the Republican Party and the president leading this lie campaign about the voter, that just the fear, stoking the fears that people have about this being unfair or somehow rigged. But at the same time, the Republican Party here in Ohio is sending out absentee ballot applications. They're encouraging people to vote early and by mail. The Trump campaign is sending out flyers saying vote early by mail.
Really?
So, yes. I've seen people post things. I received this from the Trump campaign, and they're supposed to be so against it, but they're still.
Well, that just sounds totally bizarre. Why in the world is he saying what he's saying, and yet the party is sending out encouragement to vote early? What is that all about? Wow.
Yeah, wow. Speculate. Right. I mean, the president himself voted early by mail in Florida. from Washington.
I wonder if it could be, tell me what you think of this. I wonder if that man has totally gone rogue. If he just has his own agenda and he's not conferring with the Republican Party at all.
It sure
could that be? It certainly looks like it.
I mean, even on a lesser scale, I don't know if you saw the news today about how he got bored at the hospital where he's supposed to be quarantining. So he put himself and his security detail in a car to do a little motorcade drive around the hospital to see his fans.
I saw that.
All of those people at risk. I'm sure that was against the advice of his doctors, and certainly who in his party would think that's a good idea for him to continue to flout the guidelines of the CDC.
Well, I think that was the biggest display of his selfishness and narcissism. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said in the last 24 hours, anyways.
Yeah, who knows what's coming by the time we're finished with this conversation.
Right.
No, but to put other people's lives in danger like that, those poor Secret Service agents, they'll step in front of a bullet if it happens. But this didn't have to happen. They didn't have to be in a car with this man who is contaminated by the virus.
Right.
Selfishness and narcissism.
Right. And what message does that send to people who are still refusing to wear masks in public because no one seems to want to take this virus seriously?
Yeah.
We just got here yesterday from Ohio for a little vacation, and servers in the restaurants are wearing masks, but they're wearing them around their necks.
Oh, wow.
The man who delivered our food yesterday at the restaurant didn't have a mask on at all.
Hold on a second. Snoopy's here to give me some water.
Oh, gosh.
Say hi, Snoop. We're not recording.
Hey. Hi. Hello. She won't come on. There she is. Hello.
Good to see you. There you go. Right there.
Sorry, my dog got excited.
I can't really hear you. I have the headphones.
Here.
Oh. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I hear you. It's so nice to see you. I don't think I've ever seen your face.
I know. I don't put my face out there. But yeah, very nice to see you. I've heard so much about you.
Oh, it's so great to meet you in person.
Yeah, you
well,
too. Well, so we'll whenever we get to Ohio, when this crazy virus goes away,
please come visit. I would love to meet you in person.
That would be fun. Yeah, we will. Yeah.
And
all right.
I can come to Norway too.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That would be great. Absolutely. Okay,
Okay.
well, you take care. Nice seeing you.
Nice to see you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see. Let me get a little water here. Thank you, Snoopy.
That's nice.
Okay, thank you. You going now? Okay, goodbye. That's Snoopy.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here.
She's been teasing me all day long, and I'll tell you why. This might embarrass you, but I'm going to tell you why she's been teasing me. I told her, actually told her years ago about you and that I used to have a crush on you. And then I told her that I was doing this episode with you today. So she's been going around singing like, what's that song by REO Speedwagon? Like I can't fight this feeling anymore. I'm all out of love. That Chicago song. You're the meaning in my life. You're the singing all these 80s love songs, and she actually got the kids into it as well. So that's the kind of crazy humor we have in this house. And for the listeners who can't see her, she's blushing right now.
Oh yes, and she feels much better when she saw me on FaceTime and the way that I look right now.
Oh,
I'm nothing to be concerned about after all these years. Oh, hi. Oh, gosh. Hold on, John. I'm sorry. Come on, Fergus. Come on. So there's construction going on right outside my window. I didn't realize that's why the dog is going crazy.
No, but I think I just want to say that I really, really appreciate you doing this episode. I appreciate you clearing up, or rather solidifying some of the facts about how safe the election process is, about how you guys, it's not a blind process. You guys do check things. You check signatures. You check addresses. You guys are doing things that make it hard or almost impossible to cheat in some of these basic ways that the president and others on the right are putting out there.
Yeah, and it's tough because there's a global pandemic and the United States is not doing well. We're losing, more and more people daily to this disease. And so there is a real desire for people to vote early and vote by mail. They don't have to go to a room with all of those people trying to vote at the same time, standing in line, exposing themselves. So he's basically saying, go to the polls and put yourself at risk. And it doesn't make any people, that's a form of intimidation. If you don't vote in person, your vote may not count and the election may be rigged because if I don't, that shows that the vote, that the election was rigged. There's so much bad information out there, and it's not that complicated.
There's a lot of bad information out there, but hopefully there's more people like you and I who are putting good information out there. Other podcast hosts who are doing what I do and putting people on like you who can spread the word that people need to hear. It is a safe and secure process, and people, it's not weak to vote early or to vote by ballot. It's not a weakness to stay away and protect yourself from COVID, because COVID is very real, and we see that now. We've seen it all along, but now it's undeniable for his supporters. They see him in the hospital sick with this disease. So right, yeah. Hopefully that image will kick in with some people who are still. I hope so. So, last question: when are you coming to Norway?
Oh gosh, John, I brought it up to Joe so many times, my husband Joe, and he says, I think it's cold there. But every time you post the beautiful pictures, I'm like, look, this is Norway. I would love to come. You just tell me when. Or your sister, I can bring Meredith.
Yeah,
Has
absolutely.
she been?
No, she hasn't. But I can tell you, it is cold here in the wintertime, but you know what? It's not colder here than it is back home in Ohio in the wintertime. Most of the time, well, now we're living in southern Norway. So in southern Norway, very often Ohio has a lot more snow than we have here in southern Norway. Now, up north in Norway is different. Now you're talking about the real Arctic and all of that stuff. But as you see from those pictures I post, that's from our farm up north, and it's beautiful. A summer temperature might be around 70 degrees, and that's doable,
That's temperature. Yeah, I could do that all day. When is the summer months? Is it the same as here, the summer?
Here down south, you could say it's really summer by June. Okay. Although there have been incidences of snow in certain higher elevations here down south in June. But you can say you're safely in summer by June, and it lasts until, I don't know, late August, maybe the first week of September. And then we have a very short autumn, and then winter comes full force relatively quick. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're having a nice long fall here, so it's been lovely for our business, especially we keep everybody outside at the winery, so people don't have to be exposed so closely to each other.
Tell people what your places of business are. I want people to know about you.
Oh, thanks. So we opened a winery in 2013. My husband and I did, and it's right on the lake. It's a beautiful location. John's been there.
Yes.
Here. And then we actually started making beer out of the winery as well. So we produce all the wine there. We started producing beer there from the beginning. And then the demand for the beer got to be so great that we needed more space and bigger equipment to make bigger quantities of beer. So we moved across the street. So we have a separate brewery across the street with a tasting room and a pub there. Yeah. So and keeping us busy. And it's a lot of fun. More fun than practicing disability law, I must admit.
Well, it looks like you're having fun. I'm sure it has its challenges. You know, I was a business owner myself with my gym, so I know the challenges in it. But I tell you, it's also very fulfilling. For me, anyway, it was a challenge that I enjoyed. I loved working for myself with my own business. I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And it's a lot. And it's more hours. You know, I thought I worked harder than an attorney. I would say harder now, definitely more hours, but it's so much more fun. Really, call me now, it's not because they're sick or broke or injured, it's because they want to plan a party, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Like,
big difference.
That's more money.
Big difference.
Yeah, but it was a challenge. I mean, learning all the bookkeeping and the taxes and, you know, a lot of the licensing and the permits and all of that. You know, it's been a learning curve, but you know, nothing we can't figure out, right?
Yeah, you know, it is a lot to learn. It is a big headache, but there's also that sense of building something, and you just can't replace that with a regular 9-to-5 job. It just doesn't compare.
That's for sure. Yeah. And you know what? I like to think that our employees love their jobs too. At least that's what they tell me. Because it's most of the employees have a full-time job, and this is their fun social job, and so they choose to come to work because they enjoy it. So it's nice to have people who like to come to work.
Well, I bet you it would be a fun place to be. That one time when I was there, as soon as we opened the door and walked in, you could just feel that it was a fun place to be, both as a customer but also as an employee. I could just feel it right away. So.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you. Yeah. Like a little oasis, you know, you can just leave your troubles behind, and you know you're in an urban area, but you come down to the water and you sit looking over the lake, and you forget you're right in your town. So,
yeah, I bet you being by the lake is probably a good draw for the winery there. Absolutely, it's beautiful there. I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you.
Well, listen, Ricky, I feel very fortunate. I feel like I'm better off now that you've been on my podcast. And again, thank you for sharing the information. Thank you for your activism. Can I call you an activist of sorts?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take moniker.
But I see that, and it's not just with the election thing. It's your attitude. It's your take on certain subjects. I can see that you've got a big heart. You're a giving person, and I'm sure other people see it too. So please keep doing what you're doing.
I don't think I could change, but thank you for that. I'm noticing that.
My pleasure. All right, then. Well, thank you for being on the Coming Home podcast. And my guests, thank you, too.
It's been my pleasure talking to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you and goodbye.